Separation anxiety when going to school. Please help. Every few weeks, I get a desperate message from a parent who is asking for help on how to support their child with separation anxiety at school. Now, I have had so much experience with this topic when I was a preschool teacher and then a school principal that I have collected a lot of really useful tips. And now, because we have been asked it so many times online, we have made a whole course on this, as there is so much that you can do to help yourselves and your child through this. But in the meantime, here is a response to a parent who implemented these strategies and had it all resolved within a week. Hi Robin, my son is 3 years and 2 months old and he has just recently started going to a preschool. 3 days a week, 3 hours each time. He cried for 2 weeks in school, but it didn't seem to help. Last Monday he cried for all the 3 hours. My wife tried to stay for 45 minutes, but he was still crying. We promised him a chocolate or a toy for every day he didn't cry. But now that doesn't work anymore either. I know this isn't part of any course you have, but I'm putting it out there that you may have some ideas that could help us. It's really hurting us seeing him so upset, and now it's taking so much time and energy from our work lives as well. Before we go into some of the techniques, please remember that every child has a different temperament. Some techniques and insights may apply to your child and situation, and some may not. I will share a whole list of them with you, and I suggest you take those that resonate with you and your situation. You can always adapt what I'm sharing to your child's age and current anxiety levels. For the purposes of this lesson, I will use a boy as an example, although this doesn't mean that girls do also not get separation anxiety. In my experience of being a parent, and more importantly as a preschool teacher, a child's anxiety level is related to the level of trust and connection he has to the people around him. So when a child joins a new school, their separation anxiety relates to the transference of safety, of trust, and of comfort from the parent to the school. A child who feels disconnected from the people around him or alone at school will not want to be there. Now, this gives us some insight, as this can also be to a new friendship or a new group of friends. At my school, we found that just one good friendship or relationship made a huge difference. If a child enjoys playing with just one other friend, then this made that transition easier. We also noticed that when a child arrives at school and he had a choice of friends to play with, they felt it much easier to say goodbye to the parent. Now, although I'm going to share some tips from a teacher's perspective, you need to see how this applies to you and what you can do, even at school if the teacher can't. In fact, these are the same techniques I would encourage if you had playdates for the first time at home. All of these tips and skills apply to you as the parent or the teacher at school. So with the insight and experience that children thrive on relationships, my teachers focus totally on supporting the new child in joining groups and nurturing friendships. Usually the teacher would spend time with the new child, even if the new parent was standing nearby, and that teacher would continuously invite other children whom they thought would be a good friendship match to come and play with him. Let's say that your son John, who is 4 years old, joins our school. Right up front, the teacher would engage and spend time with John, building a personal connection. Hey John, what would you like to do? Some painting, some drawing, a puzzle? And if you have done any of my other courses, you will know how powerful choices can be in giving a child an experience of empowerment. Then, as that teacher is drawing with John, she begins to invite other children over. Hey Matthew, come look here at what John and I are drawing. John says he loves dogs, so we are drawing his pet dog Ruffy. Do you want to join us and add your pet dog to the drawing? And so it goes on, each sentence building the shared personal stories of the children so they begin to feel more connected to each other. Hey John, did you know that Matthew also joined our school recently? His favorite game outside is swinging in the trees. Maybe he can show you when it's outside time. As you can see, we continuously built the connections between the two children. As we did this, the teacher would also say, John, while we carry on drawing over here, I want your mom to just go and look around at some of the things that the other children are doing. I am hoping she will come back and tell us the good ideas the other children are doing. Then maybe we can do those things ourselves. So this builds John's expectation that mom doesn't have to be around him the whole time, and that we can make it exciting that mom can go away and come back because she'll come back with new ideas. So John begins to experience that his mom can move away from him, and it's exciting because when she comes back, she will share her good ideas with us. If this all progresses well, we would move towards adding in that Mom is going to be going soon. But before she goes, maybe we can do something that we can give her to keep reminding her of you today, so that when she comes back to pick you up, she is going to be so excited to see you again. What would you like to give her? This clever wording gets John to think more about what he will give her rather than on her leaving. Nearly all the time the child says, she can take this picture that we are drawing now. If he answers like this, we know that in his mind he has already begun to accept the fact that Mom will go and that she will be coming back. Another great insight is in giving John a choice of when his mom can go, but the options to choose from are yours. Whenever a child chooses something, it implies a level of responsibility and acceptance taken. John, your mom is going to leave soon, so we can carry on having fun here at school. Would you like your mom to stay for a little longer? Would you like maybe 5 minutes or perhaps 10 minutes longer? Usually John will say the 10 minutes, but then again we know that in his mind he is accepting that a time will come and he is the one choosing that. The final point of allowing a separation to occur easily is to instill a ritual that happens at the point of separation. This ritual process is probably the most important part of allowing a stress-free separation.
The child doesn't want the mother to leave. He's been crying for a whole year and a half since we started at the school. So every time we get to school, wants to come to school, no problem at home, getting dressed, getting in the car, lays on the playing ground. When the tambourine goes and it's time to go, it's just tears and screams and tantrums, and I cannot leave. The child comes with the dad, no problem.
Great. So from your sharing in that perspective, there are a couple of things which are useful for us just to look at. The first one is the distinction between you going to school and dropping your child off, and then obviously the father dropping the child off, and how differently the child is with both of those parents. Firstly, it's really useful just to see that that's okay, that children have different relationships to their parents. Her association relationship to you is going to come with its own mixed match of criteria, buttons which are pushed, emotions which are different to those of her father. What you're asking is, in your situation, what is it that you can do differently that would support your child in separating from you, such that she could go to school on her own happy and you could leave without feeling, how am I going to survive this next hour or two worrying that my child is at school, my daughter's at school, sobbing her heart out, and it just feels like it's breaking your heart, right? So there are a couple of techniques and things that we could do that would support her in that. Perhaps one of the most powerful is the technique of rituals. So, for example, there's an experience of your daughter in that moment of being overwhelmed by you not being there. So something that's worthwhile thinking about in a child separating from you at school is a transference of what they feel safe or secure with. So, for example, you're spending the time with your child in the morning, you're coming to school, there's a strong relationship between you and your daughter, and at school, that power, that sense of safety and security that your daughter has is now being transferred from you, theoretically, onto the teacher or to the school environment. If your child does not experience that sense of safety and security at an emotional level, then that transference is going to be really tricky, which means she's going to want to cling onto you, right? Clinginess. She's not going to want you to go, or she does not want to stay on her own. And what's really useful is to find a way, two things that would support that transference of her feeling safe and transitioning from the one phase, or the activities that you've been doing, into the start of a new one, which is in the school environment. And here are two things that you could be looking at. The first one is ensuring that the relationship that your daughter has with the teacher is one that is really powerful, coming from a space of safety and security. So what I'm referring to there is, if there are things that that teacher could do that would make that child feel special or that relationship be nurtured, then that would be really useful. What we found, for example, in a situation like that is, first step would be for the teacher to actually spend time with the child, more than maybe what is useful, just getting to know more on an emotional level, personal level, what is going on. And I guess in many teachers, they would say they already are doing that. What we found really useful is that the teacher goes to the child's house and shows a personal interest in the child, as though saying, show me your room, show me the games that you're playing that excite you. Oh, is this your favorite toy? Then there's a different layer of relationship which cannot exist alone in the school environment. That would be a really useful emotional holding space that would exist in between the teacher and the child, which would allow for that transference, that transition to be really powerful. The second one is to, in a sense, ritualize the ending of your time with her in the morning and the beginning of the new one. So, for example, what I'm referring to as ritualizing is a routine that your daughter could start to expect is going to happen, which gives her a sense of safety and security. So what I'm referring to there is, what we find useful is, at the end of your time there, when you're dropping off, you and her have a special arrangement, something that you do every morning that signifies that you love each other and that you're going. So, for example, what we found really great is that the child would hug and say goodbye, and then they would go and stand at a special place where, as the parent left the premises, the child could wave. And with them having that every day, the ritual of it seemed to alleviate that whole concern. Different kind of rituals, you could think of what that might be. It might be that you kiss 5 times. It might mean that you give a big hug. It might mean that you run a last race to see who can get to the gate before each other. A whole lot of different things, and that's where the creativity of you and the teacher would be really useful. And let's open up the conversation to the creativity of the child, because the more we can get your child to think of solutions that would work for them, the more likely it will work for them. So one of the more powerful ways of supporting them in that transition period is also to offer them choices. Because remember, every time you offer a child a choice, they experience a sense of empowerment because they are making decisions that impact their lives, and that also creates a sense of confidence. So the night before or in the morning, you could also create an expectation for your child, which is saying, so when mom is leaving this morning, would you like to come to the gate and hug me there, or shall we hug goodbye in the class? When we get to school, would you like me to come inside and put your bag down with you, or would you like for us just to play outside before I go? Every time you're making that choice or offering a choice and your child is deciding on a choice, she is increasing in her confidence and in her expectation of what's going to happen. The more you can create for her an expectation of how things are going to go, all the way up until she goes inside, the more she will experience safety and security in that transition period. You could even be offering those kinds of choices all the way up to, for example, when the school bell goes or the tambourine rings and the child's going to go inside. So, for example, it could be, okay, so I'm aware that the tambourine's going to go in 5 minutes. How would you like for us to say goodbye? Would you like to come and walk with me to the gate, or would you like for me to hug you a whole lot of times? Would you like to, when you go inside, would you like to go and sit next to one of your friends? Shall we find out where your friend is so that works for you as well? So the more that your child becomes familiar with what the next steps are in their routine, the more safe they will feel and the easier they will experience saying goodbye to you.
Now, everything that I've been talking about that happens at school could also happen at home. And if you feel that the school your child goes to just doesn't get this, then that's okay too, because you can take ownership of this process. You don't have to be the one to wait for the school to support you. You can either do these things in the school while you drop him off, or focus on creating school friendships by creating playdates at your house. When you're at home during the playdate, you can follow the same kind of process above about getting your children to connect and build their personal stories together. So as they are playing together, you get them to share more and more about what they like to do. Now, we have also had situations where the parent informed us that when they asked their child if they wanted to have a playdate, the child said no. But don't panic, there are still so many clever ways that you can still work with this, and here are some of them. You ask the teacher which of the children in his class she thinks would be a good friend to start with. And you get those parents' phone numbers. You then phone those parents up and ask if they would like to come around soon and bring their children, so you can get to know them a bit and maybe even explain how you are trying to help new friendships grow between the kids. So this is not a formal play date for your son, but no doubt when the boys get together, they will play. So you are tricking your son, as this is your play date with the parent. But now the opportunity to make new friends opens up naturally. And it will probably be easier to create new playdates after that, as the ice has already been broken between them. So do this with a few of the parents. Another way to bridge this gap of playdates in your son's mind is to have fantasy playdates. So let's say that John still says he doesn't want to have a playdate. So you create it as a fantasy instead. So John, would you like to invite anyone over for a playdate? No, he replies. Okay, so we don't do that yet. But you know, I was thinking, I'm imagining that if we did invite someone, do you think that they would prefer to swim or prefer to watch TV? At this point, he will probably start engaging you in this and joining in, probably watch TV. But if he doesn't engage, you can still carry on and describe what it is that you think would happen. So if Matthew came over for a play date for a while, I reckon that both of you would want to play in the pool. And then you would be so hungry after that that I would need to make a special treat. I think I would make pancakes for you both. And because it's such a special play date, I think I would put you both in front of your favorite DVD while you're eating your pancakes. You will see your son listening very carefully to you. With you engaging in the fantasy, you are bridging the gap in John's mind so it will be easier for him to go from fantasy to reality later on. You are painting a safe picture of what it could be like for John in his imagination, and through this he slowly becomes more and more comfortable with it. We also found that if a child was not connecting to a teacher, then we suggested the teacher to do a home visit. In other words, the teacher comes over for tea. This makes an impression of being special and creates a connection outside of just the classroom. The teacher gets to see the child's bedroom and the relationship deepens automatically. But not all teachers and schools are open to this, but we found it useful if a child was really struggling. And there is so much more that we can look at and deepen, but what I've mentioned above will be an incredible start to supporting your child in working through their separation anxiety at school.